DJ. I think I'm the only person that calls you Palesa. I feel like that.
Well,
maybe, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So interchangeably during the interview, I'll use Palesa, I'll use DJ. So thank you very much for doing this interview with My Biggest Blunders. So welcome to My Biggest Blunders. Maybe just to dive in. So tell me about where the name DJ comes from.
I used to play soccer. I grew up playing soccer, street soccer, like any township kid. And then I joined a club called Angels FC. And then I went to School of Excellence in Nelspruit. That's where I got the name DJ. So before DJ, I was Tom Tom in Witbank when I was playing for Duva Power Station when Eskom had a league, a soccer league, and for Angels FC. And then I went to School of Excellence and I got the name DJ because I was
pretty good to get into Boma FC, Wara Wara. I'm thinking, so something then occurred to me today as I was prepping, and then I realized that it's the 9th of September. And is it 9 years ago?
Tomorrow's going to be 9 years.
Tomorrow, 9 years ago. Okay. So it's the 9th of September, 9 years ago. So not tomorrow, but today, 9 years ago. Tell me how your life was like.
It was a normal day. It was actually, I was at work. I was 2 weeks into a new job. I was at work, normal day, running around. In the morning, I went for a run at 5 in the morning. When I come back from work, I go for a ride on my bike. Normal average day. I go see friends. I'm looking forward to the 10th because the 10th is my first day off after 2 weeks of training. So yeah.
Sure. So normal day, able-bodied, running around. You were 27 years old. Okay. So tell us what happened then. 10 o'clock on the 10th of September.
So let's start in the morning. So in the morning before 10, my usual routine, go for a 10K run, come back, relax, have breakfast. And I'm just thinking to myself, let me clean my cottage because I live in a cottage. Let me clean my cottage for no reason. I clean my cottage, unpack stuff, put them on the floor, and I look outside, I see Dolly. So I name all my equipment. So my bike was Dolly parted.
Okay.
So I see Dolly and I think, let me just go for a ride, quick ride, I'll come back. I take Dolly and just 2 streets up, my friend Nozuko has got a shop. And I pass by the shop and I'm like, I'm just gonna do a quick ride. I'm not leaving the neighborhood because usually I'd cycle maybe say from Westdean to Soweto or to Westop, depending on how I feel. But I just said, I'm just gonna be in Westdean, I'm just gonna cycle around. And I'm asking, what do you want? What do you want me to get? What do you want me to take? And she's like to me, if you see nice flowers or nice plants, just steal them for me and bring them back. Don't worry. And literally 5 streets away from home, there's a road called Manaleng. And I cycle down the steep road. And I'm picking up speed, I'm picking up speed, I'm picking up speed, and the brakes are not catching. And I look up and there's a danger box. And I have to think fast. So on my right is a dam and I can go into traffic, or I can go left, which is an uphill, and use the bike to slow down, the uphill to slow me down. But I turn too fast and I hit the pavement and I fly into the Palesa wall at the UJ Rugby Stadium. And I'm lying there. At that moment, I didn't know I was paralyzed. All I know is that I'm lying there and I'm tired and I'm on my bike and I want to stand up, but I can't do any of those things. So I'm just lying there. And a white man just comes and stands in front of me and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, just help me out. And he's like, I can't, I need to call other people, but I can't help you stand up right now. And I'm just like, this guy.
Not understanding.
Okay, I'm like, okay, where's my bike? He's like, your bicycle's there, it's fine. I'm like, okay. And he asked me for a number, and the only number that comes to my head is Nozuko. She's the last person I spoke to. And he calls Nozuko, but in the meantime, there's a crowd gathering around me. And I don't understand why these people are whispering and why they're surrounding me and why no one would move me and why no one would give me water. And I'm just like, I just want to go home. And I hear Nozuko. Do you want me to continue with this?
Yes.
And I hear Nozuko coming and I hear her talking. I can spot her voice anywhere in a crowd. And she's laughing. I can hear her saying, I'm gonna get that fool and put her in a car and I'm gonna take her to the hospital. She probably just broke her leg, you know?
Yeah.
And she comes and she sees me and our eyes meet and she keeps quiet. And I'm like, so are we going home? And she's like, we need to wait for the ambulance. I'm like, but why? Can't we just go home or go to the hospital tomorrow or to the doctor tomorrow? She's like, no, we need to go to the hospital. After the hospital, we'll come home immediately. I'm like, okay, but help me up. Let's take the bike home. And she's like, no.
So it's still not dawning on you
I'm feeling nothing.
that I can't move.
No. I'm feeling nothing except for that it's hot and I'm thirsty and I'm irritable. But otherwise, physically, I'm not feeling anything.
No pain, nothing.
No pain, no nothing. I'm sweating. Well, I thought it was sweat. I didn't know at that time that my head had split open. So I'm thinking, I'm sweating, I'm hot, I'm irritable. And an ambulance arrives. Actually, I think there was 2-3 ambulances that arrived. And I remember the paramedic asking, who's closest to her? And nurse was like, I am. And they were like, you hold her head so she doesn't panic. I'm like, panic? Why would I panic? You know, and they helped me to the ambulance and just struck me in, but now I'm tired and I want to sleep. And I start closing my eyes. And they tell her, do not allow her to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Just talk to her. And I'm just like, let me nap for a good 15 minutes. Then I'll be good, I'll be fine. And nurse just kept talking to me the whole entire time, making me tell her stories, you know, asking me questions. And I was just like, oh, of all days, she wants all these stories of all days today when I'm so tired. And I remember we got to the hospital. What I remember about the hospital was the lights. The lights were on continuously. People were touching me all the time. I remember I heard my ribs break because they were taking x-rays. So when they straightened me out, I could hear the ribs breaking. And I remember I cried out loud. And I thought that was just one day that it all happened. But when Noz explained it afterwards, I was in the emergency room at Joburg Gen for 3 days.
What?
And for those 3 days, the doctors, when my mother arrived, they told her that she must make plans for my funeral because I wasn't going to make it.
Sure.
They wouldn't operate on me. Noz had to fight them to operate me. And she told me that she'd rather have me die in the operating room than here in the emergency room. I don't remember all that. I remember that I was thirsty and no one would give me anything to drink, and that the lights, I kept complaining about the lights. I'm like, can we please switch off the lights? But it's the emergency room. You can't switch off the lights.
So what were your injuries?
So I dislocated my spine. I broke ribs. Those ribs punctured my lung.
Sure.
Fractured a shoulder. Sustained a head injury. I was lucky that I was wearing a helmet. So if you look at my face, I almost lost the eye, and then the scar goes up. But the helmet took most of the injury. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure I'd still be alive.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I never wore a helmet when I cycled around the neighborhood. But on that day, I just grabbed it for no reason. I just wear this helmet.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I only wore it when I was doing long distance.
So I mean, so take me through the healing process. How long does it take you to heal? When do you go home? You know.
I mean, every injury is different. So I was in hospital for 4 months.
Okay.
And in rehab for 8 weeks. So you're in hospital, they make sure you're gonna live, because I was in ICU after the operation. And then ICU, and then you put general population, that's what I call it.
Yeah.
You know, and you put there. And then once you're stronger, you're taken to rehab. And in rehab, that's where you learn to sit up straight, to dress yourself, to feed yourself, to bathe yourself, kind of situation. But when I was at Joburg, the nurses that took care of me had already started the process, you know. And I remember they were very strict with me. So in the spine ward, I was the only one who was seriously hurt. So they would use it for, you'd get patients with hip injuries would come in and go, but I was there the longest, so they were very strict with me. I learned how to wash my face at Joburg Gen. I remember the first time I lifted a teaspoon, a plastic spoon, and it was the heaviest thing.
Sure.
Like, it was heavy. Brush my teeth. The first time I remember I cried because it just hurt. And they had to teach me they tried to teach me how to sit up a bed, and you'd feel dizzy because you'd be lying down for so long. All those things that you have to learn how to redo and to do them. It's like being a child again at 27.
Yeah. So okay. So your injuries then, because of the spine, you're a paraplegic.
Yes. So at the back you've got levels from T to C. Mine is a T9, T10. So that's where your spine runs at the back. So because I'm in the T levels, which is T1 to T12, mine is a T9, T10. Complete, I'm a paraplegic. Had it been higher, I'd be a quad. So quad means that the hands are affected. So the T's, the legs are affected. But because of my level, I don't have stomach muscles as well. So I'm not stable if I'm not on my chair.
Sure. Okay. I mean, yeah, I'm overwhelmed because I can't. Yeah, even in my head, I'm just thinking, oh my God, what a miracle. So I'm gonna jump around a little bit. I'm gonna come back to the recovery journey because I think we need to talk about how you recovered and the people that were there to support you and your family and all of that. But so a year later, and this is why I'm saying I'm jumping around. A year later, you are the world paraplegic champion, paracycling.
Well, not the world. The world would mean number 1.
Yeah.
I'm number 8 in the world.
You're number 8 in the world. I mean,
number 8 in the world.
It's still a big deal.
Yeah.
Number 1 in Africa. Maybe let me rephrase it. So a year later, you are number 1 on the continent of Africa.
In the H3 category.
Whatever category.
Okay. Yeah.
Whatever category. It takes. Some people don't recover. Some people who do recover, it takes them a long time. You, in a year, not only did you recover, but you were competing nationally, internationally. What the hell?
It's life.
So how do you get there? How do you get from I can't pick up the teaspoon to I'm competing internationally?
I made very, very serious choices when I was in hospital before rehab. One of the main choices was that I told my parents that I'm not going home with them. So my parents are in Mpumalanga. In Joburg, I have no family. And my mother was like, "You take me home. Where am I? And we're gonna take care of you." And I said, "I'm not going home. If I go home, I'm gonna kill myself." Because I know if I go home, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, Mwanaka, oh, man,"
Yeah.
And I was like, "I'm not doing that. You wanna depress me? I'm gonna kill myself. I'm gonna stay in Joburg on my own, and I'm gonna try." My mother cried. She cried, and I felt bad, but I didn't budge. I'm not going home, so I stayed in Joburg on my own.
Sure.
I mean, I had friends, I had colleagues,
but essentially you're alone.
You know, and those were one of my first choices. My other choice is that after I left rehab, so after I left rehab, my mother was there for like a week, and then she went home because she's a teacher. She had to go teach, and I've got younger siblings. I'm the first of 4. I cut my parents off. That's the second thing that I did. I cut my parents off because every other call, my mother's phone call was like, I can't believe it. My father's phone calls were like, no one in this family is disabled, but
I can't.
Yeah. So I didn't see my parents. So 2015 to 2019, I did not see my parents at all.
4 years.
At all.
Sure.
At all. The only communication my parents had with me was via the last phone. I would tell her I'm okay. She would say, okay. Is there anything that you need? I'm not going to need anything. Even if I needed something, I don't need anything. She'd be like, "Sis, can I come see you?" I'm like, "No, not yet. I will tell you when I'm ready." 4 years. And that entire time, I was training. I trained. I made it into the national team. I represent South Africa. I acquired a scholarship at UJ, went back to work. I fell a few times. I went to hospital a couple of times, but they were not allowed to come anywhere near me.
So the decision that you made was what? I am going to live.
I'm going to live. Because you can either be alive or you can live your life. And as much as our parents love us, I felt at that moment that they want to stunt my growth. And I'm going to continuously depend on them no matter what. And I didn't want that. And this was a new journey that I wanted to take on my own. And I wanted to build my own foundation without every 5 minutes someone asking me, so how does your mother feel? Which is also what society does.
Yeah.
Every time I'd go somewhere, oh, Mara must be in pain. Oh, Papa, I'm like, no. That is affecting me mentally. And I had to think about my mental health. I didn't think of that way that time.
Yes.
I just knew that I just needed them to be there.
Yeah.
And when I was ready, and it was in 2019, then slowly I was like, okay, let me see my mom. Okay, let me see my sister. Let me see. But it was also on my own terms. So now, in 2023, my mother will tell you, Palesa, I don't worry about it. She can handle everything. And she's the one who even reprimands people when they start treating me like, kiss horn.
Yeah.
Like, not this one.
But how do you make a decision though to compete internationally? How do you make a decision was it a decision or do you know?
I mean, I've been an athlete my entire life. My entire life. When I was younger, played soccer, played hockey as a provincial team. From the age of 13, I was in the LVCC Masters. So the Masters is former Springboks and the former team, and I played with them as a goalkeeper. Did bodybuilding, I did weightlifting, I did swimming. So sports was just
a
me.
way of life.
And it was also, sports also saved me, because growing up I was also hanged out with the wrong people.
Yeah.
But I likely because I went to sporting camps, I was never there when things went completely wrong. As I was somewhere at a hockey camp or at a soccer camp. That's why now if you see my best friend, who's a guy from when I was a child, he's on drugs and in and out of prison, and I'm in a jail, but I'm living
better.
You understand?
Yeah.
Because I never had that opportunity to do all those things. I was away at sporting camps. So when I had my accident, the only thing that made sense to me was sports. That's the only language I could understand. I needed to compete. Because there's a freedom in playing sport. There's a freedom in cycling. I remember when I got my first hand cycle. And there used to be, he sadly passed away, but Pete, he used to be a driver at my current job. And I didn't work there at that time. So they gave me they sponsored the chair. 2 weeks after I came out of hospital, I wrote an email to everyone and anyone. And I said, my name is Palesa, Manaleng. I just had an accident. I just came out of hospital. I'm 2 weeks out of hospital. I'd like to become a national athlete. I need a hand cycle. Hand cycles, brand new, cost from an easy 300,000, 400,000, depending on the make.
Sure.
You understand? I don't have that money. It needs to be imported.
Yeah.
It needs to be my body size, my
customized,
custom made. Can you help me? And they said yes.
Wow.
Never met me. They said yes. We'll get you a hand cycle. We will help you the best way that you can. And Prapit took me to fetch me from home when we got to Milder's Drift. And I remember the first time I got into the hand cycle and we were going down a steep hill, and I just break and I started crying. And he said, "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" I'm like, "I'm scared." Because I'm in a chair because I went down a steep hill.
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, just take a breath. Let's relax." And for a whole week, we just go slightly further, slightly further.
Yeah.
And then a month later, I cycled 45 kilometers. And it was the best thing ever. It was painful. It was the best thing ever. Then in that year, I cycled 45 kilometers to 110 kilometers with him. And I just cycled, and it was also the same year that I made the national team and represented South Africa and came number 8 in the world. UJ picked me up, and I started doing track for them as well, and cycling, and I did sitting shot put, and I started swimming, and I started wheelchair boxing. I just wanted it all. Just wanted it all,
Yeah.
And I wasn't working in 2015, and I was freelancing here and there. Because every time you applied for a job, people are like, oh, we're doing you a favor. This is how much we're willing to pay you because, you know, you're disabled and we're doing you a favor. And that's another thing that got me into activism. Like, I've got the qualifications, I've got the experience.
Yeah.
I just can't walk anymore.
I just need an opportunity. Yeah.
So it was a busy year that year.
It was a busy year. So, yeah, this is me jumping around again.
Mm-hmm.
So, because the platform is my biggest blunders, and you know, I think that the simplistic way of defining it is just, you know, what are some of the decisions, big and small, mistakes that became blunders in hindsight, that we make, and also just sharing, you know, part of the stories and the lessons that we learn from that. So I'm going to jump to that and then ask you, what are some of those decisions, or one, you know, decision, mistake, blunder that you think you made, that when you look back now, you're just like, I
shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think let's start with my education.
Okay.
So I was on a UJ scholarship, and when COVID hit, I was doing my second qualification with them, which was my third qualification overall. And they were paying for everything. They were willing to pay for me to go all the way to a PhD. And I dropped out after my graduation. I was just like, no, I don't wanna go after a PhD. And the main reason I dropped out was because I was so stressed. I was stressed because I'd been selected to go represent South Africa at the World Cup. 2 World Cups and a World Championship, but I didn't have funding. I didn't have funding, which meant that I missed out on the Paralympics, the 2020 Paralympics. And I took it so hard that I just didn't want to do anything. And I think that if I had held on a bit more, I'd still be cycling at that national level. I'd be competing. Maybe I'd be going to Paris next year, Paris 2024, if I just held on. Because they were giving me all the support that I needed.
Yeah.
But I just, not going to Tokyo when it was so close, just broke me. I know that broke me more than my disability did. The fact that I could see the Paralympics right there, and all I had to do was go to at least one World Cup or the World Championships, and so that was one blunder there for me. I was just like, maybe just held on. The bike, you know. In 2012, I was dating
this person.
And I had a bicycle, and she made me sell it, you know, and she was like, no, sell this bicycle, it's not safe. I could still walk at that time. And when we broke up, I was like, yeah, she's gonna tell me what to do. And I bought a bike, and I ended up in a chair. I was just like, yo, maybe if I'd listened to her, you know, sometimes on those days, I'm like, if I'd listened to, okay, man. Yeah, so it just,
it's one of those.
Yeah, those, I'm just like, oh, off it. But it is, it's life now, and besides that, once in a while, thought about maybe if I'd listened to her. I have no regrets about my accident.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. The adventures that I've been on since my disability. I mean, I went to Africa Burn this year in a wheelchair. You know?
Yeah. So I mean, what is some of the biggest lessons? I'm just, you know, listening to the bike, you know, blunder, and I'm also listening to, you know, to the other one around not going to compete and all of that. What is your takeaway from that? What was your biggest lesson when you look back in hindsight now? What has come out of it?
Well, you have to live with your decisions. This is a decision that I made, and I've got to live with it. And, you know, I may not be competing, but I've created space for athletes to compete, and I tell their stories. So maybe this is my new journey now, to tell stories of disabled athletes and create a space in organizations that did not, you know, carry their stories. You know, every day when I'm at work, you will see a story or two about a para athlete. Doesn't matter whether they're in the Eastern Cape or whether they're brown, black, or purple, and maybe mine not competing is good for them. It also makes me happy to tell these stories because when I first became disabled, the only athlete that I knew was Oscar Pistorius, and he did not represent me. He's a white man who's an amputee. He's a white rich man. I'm a black girl from a township with parents from the rural areas. So I had no one that looked like me. But when I find these stories, of Max, who's from the Eastern Cape, who a couple of years ago didn't have funding to be a bodybuilder, and right now, today, he's competing, as a bodybuilder here in Joburg, and he's the first pro bodybuilder in a wheelchair from Africa. Stories like that. We've got this Zanele Situ, who's 52 this year, who still represents South Africa at the Paralympic level in sitting shot put. She was the first black person in 98. Springbok colors medal. So those stories, I might not be competing at that level, but I'm able to tell those stories.
Amplify those stories. Wow. Okay, so in closing, I think I still have so many questions that I'd love to ask, but what are some of the things that and I'm gonna ask this question as if it's an advice. However, I think able-bodied, that's what we are calling it. I think able-bodied people, there's a lot of things that we take for granted. So what are some of the simple things that we take for granted that you can mention as part of advice to everybody out there to consider?
I mean, you take access for granted. Access is the most basic thing. A toilet. A toilet is the most basic human right that able-bodied people deny disabled people. They're too small, or they've got stairs into them. They're just not accessible because no one bothered to ask us what our needs are. Access to education. How many disabled kids get access to education? And is that education at the level of an able-bodied person so that they can go to university and acquire qualification and go work after this? I mean, in a workspace, how many disabled people do you know? Within media, within law,
all the different
industries, access to hospitals, medical care, clinics. If you go to rural areas, the clinics have got stairs. How am I supposed to access that when I'm a complete paraplegic? Do you think the nurses are going to carry me up those stairs? Sure. The beds in hospitals, you can't adjust them. I can't use them. Disabled women who want to have kids, can they access the gynecologist? Because those beds, you've seen them, you can't use them. So I guess the thing is human dignity. Just see us as human beings and consider our needs. Ask us. In a room full of able-bodied person, if there's one disabled person, ask that person what their needs are. But if you're not in that room, then advocate for us.
Sure. Wow, thank you so much. I mean, it just leaves me with so much to ponder on, that if there is that person, I mean, one of the things, and I think I heard you say it, it's, you said what? Not for us?
Nothing for us without us.
Nothing for us without us. And I think I want to end this interview on that note, to then say nothing for us without us. If there is a disabled person in the room,
let them speak.
Let them speak. Check the room. Asiphelela. If you are not checking for the disabled people in the room, then asiphelela. Thank you so much, Deejay, for this interview.
Thank you.
I wish you all of the best.